Hey everyone, I'm Liz, and today I'm going to be showing you how I made one of these little wizard robes. For this tutorial, you can use any color of yarn that you like, but I'm going to be showing you how to make it using this purple yarn. But you could use this green or black or whatever color that you want. And you could also trim with a color if you want to, which I didn't do in this one, but for this one I did. So aside from yarn, you're going to need a crochet hook. I'm using a size E, and a pair of scissors to cut off your yarn. And you'll need a yarn needle to sew in your ends. So let's get started with this tutorial. Okay, so I'm going to start with a slip knot. Okay, now I'm going to chain 11. Okay, I've chained 11, and now I have a total of 12 loops on my hook. I'm going to be using double crochet, so the first 3 loops on my hook are going to be the first stitch. So in the fourth hook, in the fourth loop from my hook, I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Okay. Now, normal double crochet, I would pull through 2 and pull through 2, but I'm actually going to decrease the very first stitch that I make in this row. So I'm going to yarn over and pull up that loop like I would for a normal double crochet, but to decrease, I'm going to pull up a loop in the next stitch so that I have 4 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to pull through 3. And now I'm just going to finish it like a normal double crochet and pull through 2. And now I have decreased that first stitch. So now I'm just going to double crochet until I get to the other side, and I'm going to decrease one more time. So once I get to the last 2 loops on the hook, I'm going to decrease both of these 2 loops together. Okay, so I've gotten to that last double crochet before my decrease. So I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'm going to pull up one more loop in that last chain. Then I'm going to, like I did before, pull through 3 and then pull through 2. Okay, so now I have my first row with both ends decreased. So now I'm going to chain up 2 times for my first stitch of the next row, turn the work around, and now I'm just going to double crochet once in every stitch until I get to the end of the row. Okay, so I've done the last stitch of the row, and as you can see, this side and this side has a little bit of a slant to it. So I'm going to chain up for the next row. I'm going to chain twice for my first stitch of double crochet and turn the work around one more time. And for this row, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did in the first row, and I'm going to increase the first stitch of both sides. So I'm going to yarn over and into that same stitch that I chained up from. I'm going to pull up a loop. As you can see, they're both in the same stitch. And now I'm just going to double crochet. And now I'm going to double crochet until I get to this, the first stitch of the last row. And then I'm going to increase that one too. Okay, so I have finished with the last double crochet of this row before my increase, so I'm on the last stitch. I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into that stitch, and now I'm going to increase. So I'm going to insert it into the same stitch. Okay. Okay, as you can see now, there's a little bit of almost a half circle shape forming on this side of the work. There's a bit of one on this side too, but it's not as clear, but that's going to be where our arm circles are going to go. So I'm going to continue in the next row. I'm going to chain up twice like I did in the previous rows, and then I'm just going to single crochet once for every stitch in the row. Okay, so I'm on the last stitch of the row, and I'm going to chain up 2 times to do the next row, and I'm just going to do another row of double crochets without increasing or decreasing. Now the way that you're going to finish the bottom of the work is going to depend on how long you want your piece to turn out. It depends on how big of a doll that you're trying to cover, and so I'm just going to keep adding row after row of double crochets until the piece is about as long as I want it to be. I'm going to continue, and once I get to the right length, I'm going to show you the next step. So I've done about 5 more rows of double crochet since I was about here. So I'm on the last stitch of double crochet of my row, and I think that I've gotten to a good enough length. So for the next row, I'm going to start working along the side here. So I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm just going to start double crocheting along the side. Okay, so I've gotten to this spot on this side where the circle starts to happen, where the sleeves are going to be, as you can see on this other side. So here I'm going to finish my double crochet, and then instead of double crocheting in this part to cover up where the sleeve hole is going to be, I'm just going to chain 4, and then I'm just going to slip stitch right to the top here, and that will create my armhole. And if you're going to make bigger sleeves, then you might want to chain a couple more stitches, a couple more chains other than 4. You might want to chain 6, but I'm just going to chain 4. So now I'm going to chain 2 for my next row and turn the work around. And now I'm just going to insert my hook into that chain, and I'm going to double crochet into the chain. Now you might notice that I'm only double crocheting into 1 loop. I'm going to leave these loops open so that I can attach the arms later. Okay, so now I've gotten to the end of the chain section. I'm just going to start double crocheting into the stitches and into both loops. So instead of just going into one loop, I'm going to go ahead and pick up both loops and double crochet. Okay, so I've gotten to that last stitch of the row, and as you can see, I've got my armhole done. So now I'm going to chain up twice to get to the next row and turn the work around. Then I'm going to double crochet until I get to the top here so that I can start to make the neckline. So I've gotten to the point where I put my chains to make my sleeve part. And now to make the neckline, I'm just going to decrease right here. So just like I did at the beginning, I'm going to pull up a loop in that next stitch, and then the next one after that, I'm going to pull up another loop and pull through 3. And I'm going to pull through 2, and that will finish my decrease. And now I'm just going to chain up for the next row. Now, if I was going to work regular double crochet, I would be chaining up twice, but since I'm doing this neckline, I'm just going to chain once so that this decrease carries through. Now I'm going to turn the work around and I'm going to continue double crocheting in the next stitch. Okay, and as you can see, the neck kind of starts to V out like that. Okay, so I finished another row. Now I'm going to chain up twice and turn the work around. And I'm going to do another row of double crochet going along here, and then once I get to those last 2 stitches again, I'm going to decrease. Okay, so I have now gotten to where the last 2 stitches of the row are. So I'm going to decrease. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop in the next stitch, and then I'm going to pull up a loop in that last stitch. Then I'm going to pull through all 3, and then pull through 2. And now, as you can see, this is V'ing out pretty nicely, so I'm going to chain up once for the next stitch, turn the work around, and then double crochet until the end of the row. Okay, so I've gotten to the end of the row, and now this side of the robe is long enough. So I'm going to just chain 1 to end my row, cut off my yarn, and now I'm going to do the same thing on this side of the work. So because I started on this side going this way, I'm going to start on the same side going this way. So I'm going to insert my hook into the top of the last stitch on this side. And then I'm just going to pull up a loop through that stitch. And I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to chain 1 more to get up to the height of double crochet. And now I'm just going to double crochet until I get to this side so that I can add my 4 chains just like I did on this side to have the sleeve opening. Now on this side it was 15 stitches until I got here, so I'm going to try to keep it to the same number of stitches. Oops. Okay, so I've gotten to the 15th stitch on this side where the opening for the arm is going to be. So I'm going to chain 4 just like I did on the other side. And if you chained more than 4 on yours, then you should just chain the same amount. And then I'm just going to slip stitch onto this side. Okay. And now I'm just going to chain up twice. And then I'm going to turn the work around, and just like I did on the other side, I'm going to double crochet in the top loops on this chain so that I can have these loops open so that I can come back and do the sleeves later. And now that I'm done with that part, I'm just going to go back onto both loops and double crochet until the end of the row. So I changed up twice and did another row so that I could get to the spot where like on this side, I decreased to make the neck start to V. So so the point at which I'm going to do that is right before those chain stitches that I made. I'm going to decrease this stitch. So I'm going to do that by pulling up a loop in both of those stitches and crocheting them together. And then I'm going to finish that stitch. And then I'm just going to chain up once and turn the work around. And then I'm going to continue to double crochet until I get to the end of the row. Then I'm going to come back up here and do that one more time to these 2 stitches right here. Okay, so I've gotten to the point where I'm going to decrease again. So I'm going to pull up a loop in both stitches, pull 3 together, and then pull 2 together. Chain up once for the next row, and then I'm going to double crochet until I get to the end of the row. So I've gotten to the end of the row, and you could just chain 1 to finish the row and cut off your yarn and then sew in your ends. But I want to just even out the bottom a little bit, so I'm going to do a row of single crochets all the way around. So I've chained up already, and now I'm just going to insert my hook into this stitch here and single crochet, and I'm going to do that all along the bottom. So I have gotten all the way to this side of the bottom, and as you can see, it's a lot more even. You could also cut off your yarn here, but I am actually going to go all the way around the piece with single crochets just to make it a little bit more, just to make it look a little bit nicer, I guess. So I'm just going to increase this last stitch that I just made to make a corner. And then I'm just going to single crochet along this edge too. So now I've gotten to this corner of the piece, so I'm going to add another corner by increasing that stitch. And now I'm just going to continue along the side, adding single crochets. And every time that I get to a corner, like right here, I'm going to add an increase. Okay, so I've single crocheted all the way around. As you can see, the whole thing is now outlined. And I'm on my last stitch of the row, so I'm just going to chain one and cut off my yarn. Now I just need to sew in this end, and then I can add the sleeves. So as you can see, I've added the sleeve to one side. I'm going to show you how to do the other side now. So I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into these loops that I left from when I was chaining, and also this side here, and I'm going to make 12 stitches going all the way around. I'm going to start in the back corner here. And I'm going to pull up a loop of my yarn. Then I'm going to chain 2 for my first double crochet. And then I'm going to go ahead and double crochet 12 times all the way around. And if you made the armholes a little bit bigger, then you might want to add a couple more stitches than 12. But it's going to depend on how many you chained when you were doing this part here. The most important thing is that it matches with the other side. So I finished my 12 stitches of double crochet on the first row of the sleeve. So now I'm just going to go into that first that first 2 chains that I made. That was my first stitch. But I'm going to go into that chain at the top of that stitch, and then I'm going to double crochet right on that stitch to start my second row. And now I'm just going to do one more row of double crochet all the way around. I've gotten to the end of the second row now, and if you wanted to have just a straight sleeve, then you could just continue adding rows until your sleeve was the length that you wanted it to be. But I want mine to bell out just a little bit at the bottom, so I'm going to do one increase in each of the next rows. And since I did a 5-row sleeve on the last one, I'm going to do another 3 rows and increase once at the bottom of every row. So I'm just going to double crochet into the next stitch, and that's going to be the first stitch of my third row. And then I'm going to increase that stitch, so I'm going to go into it again and double crochet again. And that will be my first increase. And now I'm just going to double crochet once in every other stitch of this row, because I don't want to add any increases to the rest of the row. And then once I get back down to the bottom of the sleeve, I'm going to start my next row with another increase. So I've gotten to the end of the next row, and I'm going to add another increase now that I'm at the bottom of the sleeve again. I'm just going to go ahead and increase the last stitch that I made. And now I'm just going to finish up this next row with double crochets so that there are no other increases. And then when I get to the beginning of the next row, which is going to be the last one, I'm going to add one more increase. So I've gotten to the end of that other row, and now I'm going to do my last increase. So this is the last row. So I'm going to do one more increase, and then I'm going to finish the rest of the row with double crochets, one in every stitch. And then once I get back to the bottom of the sleeve, I'm going to just cut off my yarn and then sew the end in. So I've gotten back to the bottom of the sleeve. Now I'm going to end the row, but I'm going to do that by, in the next stitch, I'm going to single crochet one time. So don't don't yarn over, just pull up a loop and single crochet. And then I'm going to slip stitch in that next stitch. Now I'm going to cut off my yarn. Okay. Now I just need to sew in that tail, but the robe is pretty much finished now. So I've sewn in all of my ends, and now this little robe is pretty much done. Here's another one that I've made, and this one I've put a trim of single crochets along in a different color. I did put a trim of single crochets on this one, but I did it in the same color, but you could also change the color that you're using so that it can have a little trim all the way around. So as you can see, all of the cloaks that I've made are just about done now, and all of my characters are done. You can use this cloak to make pretty much any witch or wizard character that you can think of that wears robes or a cloak. So if you like this tutorial, then please hit the like button and share it if you want to do that. And if you'd like to see more tutorials in the future like this, then please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!